Yeah, deeply awake. And I am happy to come to you today because I have sort of an uplifting, fun little message. I want to review some of the things that these guys, the teachers, told me was going to happen. And when I talked with them, it was 1992 to 1994. They ascended 12/12 of 94. And they talked a lot about DNA and lots of stuff. Ancient civilizations and whales and lots of stuff. My UFO encounters but a lot of it was like, why is she so mean to me? Things like that. So, part therapy, part hand holding, and part rescue. And they told me about some things that I could expect. Now somehow, I just never expected it would happen this lifetime. I never put the two together. I didn't think it was possible, really. As I did my walk, it just like I kept walking further and further away from them, and I didn't think that what they had to say about what was going to happen was true. I couldn't, because if I thought it was true and yet I was knee deep in the shit, then that's not a good place to be. It's easier to just be knee deep in the shit and be there now. You know what I mean? Than to say, oh, this is a better place. So I just sort of decided that this is the better place. I better get on with it. And that was my desert years. But here's some of the things they said. And I lived these principles. They said that lying would become incredibly uncomfortable. And it would be found out immediately, because there will come a time when you cannot tell a lie. So they said it would be best to live one's life as if it was going to be examined with a fine-tooth comb. So you better be okay with every single thing you do and say and is done. Just wise to live that way. Live in integrity. So that if it's ever examined, you can say, yeah, well, there you go. Okay, well, that's kind of weird. They told me there'll come a time when everyone can talk to everyone else. And no one can keep a secret. And the truth will come out about things, and that is particularly why it's best to live in integrity day to day. Because it's going to come out. And further, there'll come a time when it's just so uncomfortable that it's just, you can't do it anymore. And it's like the energy backfires on you. And you're immediately, it comes back to you. It's not pleasant. Well, that indeed happened to me really early with lying, because it's like so low energy, and it's somehow a cultural norm, especially for girls, pretty bitchy and liars and stuff like that. So you got to try things on, you know. I was an insect murderer for a while. I loved murder. It was so much fun. But then I realized how bad I was being, how out of balance I was, and I stopped. But I do have that proclivity. Insects, not humans. But yeah, it's fun. I was a great bug collector. But mostly I just like murdering them. Sometimes torturing them. I mean, I was little. But, I mean, my mom found me dissecting a rat when I was about 3 behind a shed. It was dead. Come on now. But yeah, a little bit of a scientist. But Plutonian all the way through. It's like, ooh, death, murder, mayhem. So anyway, they said it would be very good when you start seeing earth changes. It'd be really good to make sure you've got water. Make sure you have water on hand, 2 weeks worth. Make sure you have the ability to cook food off the grid. Make sure you've got food. and make sure that your loved ones, that you have a plan with your loved ones. So if the grid goes down and you're apart, you know what to do. And have, like 2 or 3 ways of doing it. But have a plan. Okay. They said there would be, we'd be going through a photon experience. They talked about the photon belt. Photons. They said it'd be 3 days and 3 nights of blackness. Just no. And they said specifically blackness. You couldn't see anything, nothing. And then, after that, nothing artificial would remain. And later on, with my girlfriend, I went out to Taos, the Pueblo in Taos. And I realized that's what we were doing there. We were living out that admonition. They'd always be ready for those 3 days. But at the time, I asked, how am I going to get around town? If nothing artificial remains, then all the gaskets in my car are going to dissolve, and my tires are going to go. How am I going to get around? It's like, no, it's not quite like that, dearie. And then it dawned on me a couple days ago that on this magical 12-21-12, which I never really resonated with. I saw that there are pillars and a door. I thought that was kind of pretty, but it's like I think people are making a big deal out of nothing. But then 3 days after that, I had that liquid golden love. The only law in effect is that of benevolence experience, and that altered me forever. So, when your whole being knows that the only reason that anyone is here involved in any of this is because everyone is so deeply and desperately and profoundly and happily in love with one another. We are so in love with one another. All of us. All of us. All of us. All of us. It's the only reason we do the horrible stuff. It's an act of profound and intimate love to harm someone at their request. But that's what people do around here on a soul level. All right. If you got to, you got to. If that's the deal, if that's how karma is going to play out. Well, conflict moves the play along. I just heard a really neat expression where the predator evolves the prey. Which I guess, I don't know. I don't like that whole setup. I think it's icky. I just think it's icky. Oh well. So I think what I saw, especially yesterday, was I getting a perspective that I think really does fit and is suitable for everyday wear. How's that? Because that's always been the question. I think when I see myself channel, sometimes I think that's because there is a wall that's cordoning off source from personality structure. But it's like I looked at that and thought, well, the human mind can only take so much. It's not appropriate to walk around with all this stuff. And then I talked to my son. Good Lord. What he walks around knowing and never talks about. And what he told me yesterday about his birth, holy smokes. It just makes me feel so safe and happy. So I'm going to share it with you. And he said it was okay. There's a whole lot that was said that won't be shared, but I will tell you that he has no idea of the kind of research I'm doing, where I'm going, what I'm learning, what I'm putting together, and what I'm producing. It's not his jam. That's fine. But he sat there last night on his recliner and not only knew exactly where I was going, what I was learning, but he didn't need the specifics. He tweaked whole thought constructs. Somehow he knew just where to go tweak, and things, I don't know, got clearer. It sickens me how children are treated, how it's culturally appropriate to treat them as nothing, and that it's okay to take away their will and minimize their natural innate abilities and interests. It's my job to encourage an environment where he feels safe to explore. And I feel that the only things I've done wrong are not been able to give him enough ways to express his interests. But I mean, that's the setup. So that's the setup. So I'm not going to hang myself on a cross for it. But I do acknowledge that what makes a life good is doing things that feel good and that are in alignment with that person's joy and excitement. And so I really do think that it's the acceptance and encouragement of joyful pursuit, meaningful pursuit, that has a future. And there are some pursuits that just don't. They're placeholders, but then there's others that you can feel are actually nodes that are putting out tendrils into your reality, pulling you toward them. And that's not up to me to give him that. That's kind of presumptuous. All I can do is provide an environment where he feels safe to explore as a soul and as a person, and as culturally relevant as he chooses to be. But his culture is going to be a lot different than ours. Ew. I mean, he says that sometimes. He recognizes who he lives with, but he'll say, "God, Mom, you just were born in a different. It's just you have limitations." And it's true. There are limits to my consciousness that he doesn't possess. And there are places I can go that he hasn't explored yet. So it's a good sort of combo. But yeah, he's definitely new generation. He's 2.0. And I mean, this is one of the things is, and then I'll get back to what the teacher said. But even as a child, some of the best educators that did the most for his mind, he loathed with a purple passion, and did not see as authority, and really didn't want to be around, didn't want to even share space with. Want to know why? Because they weren't respectful to their students. That's like total turnoff, and it ain't just him. It's a generation, guys. A generation. Started coming through in the 90s, and Ritalin got real popular. You're not going to respect authority. You're not going to agree with this paradigm. I think not. You're going to get up and move around. You're going to decide that you're sovereign. I think not. Take this. Now, some of that is just processing, and the brain was coming online, and there were some things that, I mean, sometimes chemicals can help. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Just that it certainly was one way of responding to a change in a generation's consciousness and presentation, but very mechanical and very suppressive rather than curious and explorative. And it's only gotten worse. And now, more autistics than ever, more people with sensory integration problems than ever, More people with special needs than ever. And I mean, straight up special needs. And plus, allergies and medical things that other people don't have. And I'm not talking about just my kid. I'm talking about a lot of kids. A lot of them. And the younger you go, the less respect they're going to give you if you're not respectful to them. Imagine when they get into power. Will they? Because certainly, the kids I'm talking about, they don't go to traditional schools, and they're not in college. They've kind of dropped out of the culture. They're on the fringes. They were rejected by the system. The system and they were not compatible. The parasite kicked out the host. That should tell you right there why it is we're seeing what we're seeing. Because I truly and honestly believe, after all the research I've done and all the work I've done, not only as a psych nurse but as a spiritual cosmonaut or whatever, this agreement field, or this that teachers would talk about, this agreement field, it's mutually exclusive. It is its own thing. There's no talking to it. There's no bringing it up. There's no... It's like, why would you do that? It's their reality. But it is not... It's more and more foreign. And so that's another thing that the teachers said. There will come a time of no more fence sitting, where the contrasts are so high that you must make a choice. And people are going to become really uncomfortable because they're going to have to look at themselves. And it's not the most pleasant experience if you've lived in a way where you believe that you are correct and right without ever doing any self-examination. Oh my. That's quite a day of reckoning. And most people don't get there until after they shed their body, because it's just too much. It's like, ow, ow. But then there's some lively souls who decide to go through all the boxes and all in their whole house and the attic and the basement just to get through stuff and decide what's theirs and what's not. And then they find themselves magically in a new house. Isn't that weird? The house metaphor ran through all my work. It was very, very strong. The other thing that was really strong, and it's really super cute, is I literally saw my head in a bag. I felt like I was in a black bag. Like my head was in a black bag at the beginning. And then I began to see these pinpricks of light that somebody from the outside was poking into the fabric. And then it got, there were more and more pinpricks. And then pretty soon it was like a black gauze around my face. And then I pulled it off. And then I hear that part of what these motherships, if you want to go that route, if you want to believe in that stuff, that they park in the middle of this electronic fence that's been put up to help them. I do understand now why people talk about a hologram. And there is a holographic nature to all of this. I could really blow your mind with it. But I think it's best to stay with what's real. And what's real is the coming online of human DNA, which is quantum force. It's a singularity. You can look that up. It's a big deal. And those who've done, the work, who've shown the intention, who have the skills, who are interested, because it's quite a weird path, become more and more quantum, become more and more multidimensional. dimensional. Dimensions aren't exclusive, but certain expressions are. And I realized I either stay in the land of night and day, right and wrong, good and bad, or don't. I no longer try to explain anything to it. It's my choice. And that was a profound day of mystery. It's true. It's like they're two different states. And so for me, it's never, I've always thought it was very simplistic and not true. It's between fear and love. I mean, that's a really, really good trigger. I'm not saying it isn't. It's a good trigger. There's lots of them. But it's at the bottom of the mountain. There is only love. This reality is made from liquid, golden benevolence. We are only here because we are deeply and desperately and profoundly and forever in love with each other. It's an intimate and beautiful act of sacrifice at a soul level to agree to harm someone at their request. To agree. These are agreement fields. They're agreements. Conflict is an agreement. Sure, it moves the story along. It is an agreement field. It requires you to think that someone can take anything away from you, including a sense of worth. And it is a long, long road to sufficiency. It's designed to make sure you don't understand that you are sufficient, and to make you feel real bad about being sufficient. And that's kind of a flip, to feel it's just on an organic level. It's not anything that is even cultural. It's quite organic. And so I've been noticing a lot of these glitches in the matrix. And we talked, the teachers and I, we did talk a lot about this other energy. Because it was in my reality, it was in my fields. It was, that's why I was here. It introduced itself in a village inn when I was in my early teens. Wow. It's spicy. It's not good. It's not good. So this has sort of been my path, and it's not anything that I've really advertised, because it is a... I don't know, the last week, I at one point, we had a moment in amongst everything. And I realized, this really is, when they talk about an Armageddon, there is a spiritual battle going on. But it's going on in the psyche. It's going on in the soul, in the consciousness. And it's intense. But it's not physicalized. It depends on how much credence you're going to give it, who you think is writing the story, and to what end. That's all it is. So that's kind of fun. So the 3 days of the photon belt. So yeah, I had that experience. And then what else did they tell me? We go into 12 strand DNA. With the whales, I know a lot about the whales, and it's like beyond sacred. It's just not talked about. I will tell you that the whales hold grids, and that they are they're like they're just part of it. They're part of it. They're architects. They're architects. So. And so they work in concert with the ancients and with the earth, and they're well pleased these days. So fear not, and be of good cheer, because all these things really are happening. And so, I mean, even that weird book in the Revelation, what happens in the end? Is it a good outcome? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, in the end. And I guess there's this admonition, well, if you're a bad person, then you got things to be worried about. Well, here's the bottom line. It's impossible for you to be a bad person, only to have engaged in really unconscious behavior that perhaps was not very compassionate and was quite immature. Oh well. The sun's up. You hungry? Come on now. It's a new day. Because that's the point. We're walking into something brand new. And you can't bring anything with you that is of that old agreement field. That's where those attachments must fall. The agreements to harm. The agreements to be harmed. The agreement to be in conflict. The agreement to be incomplete. The agreement to be insufficient, vulnerable, weak, dying. In need of protection. Okay. It's mother energy. So much of this is just unbalanced creation energy. Just unbalanced. It's misunderstood. Even the elements are misunderstood. Sometimes you just have to let nature speak. And then you get your mind put back together. I often notice that when I contemplate nature. I just think about it. The male principles are fire and air. The female principles are earth and water. What does that tell you? It tells me that either how we see male and female in this culture is completely incorrect, or the assignations to the elements is completely incorrect. Upside down. One of the two. And so for me, this does, I for most of my life, when I've looked out, I've seen that this is, most of the problems in this world are created because of disordered sexuality. It's just like, wow, so many misunderstandings and weirdnesses and twists in the energy. What a great way to enslave people. Tell them lies about their biology and then make them afraid of it. And make sure that no one feels comfortable talking about it. Make sure there's a lot of shame. So, it's kind of how much do you really want to live out that psychodrama? Because it's not ours really. So I'll end by telling you of my aha. So yeah. There's all this Draco stuff and Martian stuff and darkness and bullshit, right? Well, here's the bottom line. Everyone's human at this point. Yeah. They're the big ones kind of hang out. Sure, whatever. They're not powerful. They never have been. They're just good storytellers and magicians. Showboats. Pompous and silly. Just silly. And so thinking about it that way, I began to think, well, because I've seen the rage monster up close and personal in my life the whole time. And I've been a psych nurse, and I've just had experiences with its energy in all its many forms, including the real pure version. It's like, ugh, it's nasty shit. But it's here, and we got to figure out a way to live with it. And that's it. You don't live with it. You stop feeding it. And all this time I thought, oh, my job was to bring it along, to cure it, to fix it, to quiet it, to comfort it. No, that's not. No. It's not seeing things clearly. See, the Garden of Eden story, well, it is clever. Think of it this way. The woman is the earth and humanity. And Adam are these people who decide to be really fun to take advantage of a situation because we didn't have much memory. And it was just a time to do something. And so something was played out. And just in not in all areas, but in Sumerian, the Sumers and then all that stuff. The Enki and Enlil and all that crap. From there, well, here's the thing. They wrote this book, and in the book, there's a story about a garden in which there is a tree of knowledge of light and dark, good and evil. And it produces a fruit. And then there's this slithery snake that tempts a woman who says, hey, if you eat this, you'll know everything. And I always thought, wow, Eve's so cool. Well, yeah, she was. Thank you, Eve. But see how it was just bastardized? But further, do you see the problem with it? I do. I've heard it from a number of reporters that these reptilians are the scourge or the energy that's so nasty and Illuminati and all that stuff. That they were master geneticists. Well, they're incapable of that, They can't be master geneticists. Not with humans. They're outstripped because they, in their purest form, don't contain quantum energy. They have DNA, but it's not quantum. They are not master geneticists. They're geneticists, but they're not master geneticists. That's a seed lie. You see it play out in that story, Adam, wow, he takes out his own rib and somehow magically makes this female a master geneticist. No, a trickster. A parasite who tells a good story, because that's what this is. It's that energy, and it's parasitic. It attaches to hosts who are weak, and it feeds, and it feeds on emotion, and what it really prefers is fear. And that is why the delicacy is the terror of infants and babies, and that's pretty much why you hear about the satanic rites. That's the food they're going after. But they made a cult around it. They're gross. But those are human beings doing it. They're not reptilian. Sure, there are a few with royal blood. Sure. With more than not. But they couldn't get off this planet even. They couldn't even make a Merkaba. That's how degraded their DNA already was. So it's sort of the joke that's right out there. The game's already been run. It's a fait accompli. This is a combining of worlds. Not of just this group, but of many groups. We're star colony, basically. But anyway, there are some who there's a plan in place. There are objectives. There are things that are important to things that are not accessible to the human intellect in its current state, because it's limited. And so it argues and says, that's not right. Well, yeah, I suppose it wouldn't look that way. But, if you relax and loosen up and listen with something other than your ears, you begin to see. Because your world begins to teach you what's really going on. And I think that's kind of what you could call lucid living or being deeply awake or whatever. But it's a nice synthesis, and I'm very pleased about it. And I think that I have just so much encouragement knowing that it is actually, all of this is true. The stuff that Koans said is true. It's happening. There's evidence. There's proof. And all I have to do is look at my stuff and time it. And it's like, yeah, that's about right. That makes sense. Because I did some stuff with the grids too. And, we all play our part. And no one's doing it for applause or cash. We're doing it because that's our job. And it's our pleasure. And it's rewarding. And it's just what's done. You come back every now and then and help out when it's time. Remind people what's up and steady them. That's what the teachers did to me, and they helped me with some of the things they told me. And I've been scanning the skies ever since to see, well, is this going to happen? They said that when you see more objects in the sky, all that is they're always there. That's your vision coming online. That's you becoming more multidimensional. And they said that with dimensions, as they translate, then it's harmonics, and the fourth creates the density of the third, and the sixth creates the density of the fifth, and the sixth is the vibration of unconditional love and mutual respect. And then it doesn't stop there, and those are only expressions, and they're expressed with tones and color and all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. But they're worlds within worlds within worlds. And as you go up, so to speak, you reach a certain point and you contain all. Everything is available. You can go anywhere. And it's only a matter of whether you allow your biology to catch up or not. And if this body doesn't catch up, then the next one will be better equipped. And you go again with full memory. And hopefully that continues. There's a grace period now, and people are being brought in with full memory. It just isn't, the amnesia isn't sticking. But, you've got a generation with no amnesia and the multitude with amnesia. Quite frustrating for the ones with no amnesia. But Sam did say he was relieved to come in with someone who understood and wouldn't make fun of him about things that would be too hard. So I agreed. Yeah, I agree. I was also blessed with an open-minded family who did not humiliate me for my interest in things that were weird to others, and who didn't make me feel weird about being weird. So it's nice. Thank you. So I guess what I do want to say is that I see that there are some bigger revolutions or cycles than just the astrology. So yes, it might seem very provincial to be looking up at the sky and studying Saturn and Jupiter and assigning all these meanings to it. I can see why a big, huge intellect would have a problem with that, because it seems so small, so silly. But then I think to myself, well, there's no other way to explain some of the stuff that happens in my life cyclically. It's just too. There's too much of a coincidence. There's too much of an alignment. When something happens, and then I check in and see what's been going on from an interpreter that I resonate with and who is consistently accurate. Then I know that there's something here that is beyond my control. And I have been told from the beginning that ascension is triggered. There are celestial triggers without which these things do not happen. And at those times of celestial triggers, that is when it's best to be in full awareness, because then you can gain the attributes of these triggers and ride them. That's what I was taught. So imagine my surprise when I found out that my natal chart, my first natal chart, is like exactly conjunct with Deneb, which is the star in Cygnus. I thought, that makes a lot of sense, because by the end of February, I feel like I'm coming out of some sort of I'm beginning to activate in some way. And I love that it's Cygnus, because it's just like, it's ancient. That's something that was really very, very sacred to the old ones. And I like that, to have that as a signature. It's pretty. And so I just was thinking, okay, and then usually the end of May 1920, that's when we are conjunct with the Pleiades. And I'll have to double check when it's conjunct with Antares, but what I noticed in my life, just with uncanny regularity, not every single year, but weirdly, I would usually get pooped out of a system. It would be rejected from a system in around December, in the wintertime. It was just really weird. It became a pattern. From about 2000, I don't know, maybe longer than 2003. It's sort of like, I don't know. That's when I started paying attention. I think that's when the fractal started to speed up. And I was into brand new shit in July. Always getting jobs in July. All right, so, And for me, the winter solstice, that's like, oh, glory, hallelujah. Summer's here. The light's here. Oh, what a relief. And the summer solstice is always sort of oh, dang it. Winter's here. The light's going away now. That's kind of how I roll. That's how I see things. But then there's this activation period, because so much has happened in May. Just crazy. April and May. Weird. And so I have to sort of imagine that perhaps that was in play when I was unconscious of it. And maybe that's one of the reasons I felt so buffeted, because I was going through new stuff, opening doors, and living in a highly creative corridor from, let's say, February until May. And then, enacting it, living it out, doing it. And then the cycle would complete. And maybe that was 6 years, but in December. Okay. So I don't think that the planets have to have the same kind of pull on my consciousness or on my, I don't know, fate or whatever, that they used to, simply because I just feel there's probably a lot more that I'm aligned with that I'm unaware of, and I just don't know the mythology, and so I don't know the significance. But it's I think putting things in perspective and just holding more. And isn't that really what we're talking about here? Is just getting bigger. Once you move up, they talked a lot about dimensions. Once you move up, you contain everything below. And I think what they were talking about moving up is like in consciousness, in a soul level or something. I don't know. But I was puzzling on this, we're getting rid of all the negativity, just getting flushed away. How's that possible? No, we're getting rid of the construct. It is the end of the experiment. We're ending the experiment here. It's been called the Lucifer experiment. It's called many things. That experiment of living cut off. It's over. It's been over for a while. But the human mind can only take so much. It takes a while for things to come online. And that's why this ascension is really quite beautiful and unique and will affect everything. Any form of tyranny ends here because the parasite must be starved. And it just takes the consciousness waking to the story, taking a real good look at it. This is a parasitic energy that has infected a consciousness and told a great story and took advantage of a situation by agreement and request. It was a consciousness experiment. And the males are not unbalancing a thing. They are creating balance. So, maybe that gives you an idea of how unbalanced it was, or how extreme the experiment was, or how creative we are as souls. I think it helps to have that kind of big perspective on a Wednesday morning. I think it does. I'm going to go learn about the specific exercises I've got to do now so I can get to the place where I can walk up and down stairs without any assistance, looking normal. Because I want to walk up and down pyramids. I'm going to go. So to do that, I got to get in shape. I have a goal. And this is the kind of thing I like. I like it when, there's a time when you're just waiting. And sometimes you have to wait a long time. And it takes being vigilant and believing that it's possible. That there are nodes of creativity and life out there. And they send out tendrils. And wrap around your arm and say, come on, we're going to go. And that, I think, is something that either you are alive or you're dead. Either you're awake or you're asleep. Either you are pleasing others and paying bills and consuming, or you're on quests. And my life is quite magical because I insist on quests. And it just so happens that I got a new one. So that's kind of neat. And in the meantime, I'm not going to jinx it. I'm just going to say hello to new energy and to wish you well on your path. And to let you know that, yeah, I'm coming to you because it's sometimes out of insecurity, because I don't want to, not insecurity quite so much as just a desire to document it, because it's highly unusual and helpful, and I don't want to lose it. It needs to be captured. And I can tell you that at the beginning, when I was writing, I was capturing things whole. That was the whole idea. But then you can tell the writing got longer and longer and longer. And what finally happened is I began to feel weird, but then I just had to go with it. I was coming in and just checking in. And then I used the video as fuel itself, really, in a way, that medium, and then to put everything together. But now I think that it's time to consolidate and there's a remembering going on, and action is purposeful and meaningful, and is from that node. Now, there's not just one, there's many, but it's just because they're nodes from a very large source. So I see myself here, like on a Nazca line, and then way off in the distance, you have to take a plane to see it. there's this huge green, lush, magical continent. And it is sending out little nodes from the forest, here and there, and then these are sending out shoots, and all of the shoots are coming right to this node here in the desert. So, it's suddenly kind of green around here. It doesn't matter which direction I go, I'm gonna go the same place. It's still that magical place, and just being touched by a tendril. I'm already in the forest. So it's a matter of making it real, making it normal, being at peace with it. And I'm really working on respect. That's sort of like my sufficiency, respect. Those are my buzzwords now. That's kind of neat. So there's a little bit of prophecy and poetry. And absolutely no idolatry. The parasites' god is money. Their priests are the bankers. And their Sadducees and their Pharisees are the psychiatric and medical communities. And it's a cult. And it's a death cult that specializes in bombings and murder and mayhem and stuff. Okay, whatever. That's weird. It's just as weird as some other religions I've seen. Except I don't have to go to their church, and I seem to be compelled to engage in this one. So, whatever. We're waking up, and the host is no longer hospitable. The host is fearless. Uh-oh. Guess that's what's happened. That's what happens. Scare somebody long enough, can't get scared anymore. There is, a biologic and magical component to this, but I encourage you to use the whiffer in your heart to discern what's in front of you. And if you feel turned down, your volume is turned down, or you're feeling weird and bent, twisty, well then, you don't have to invest. Just hit it with light and move about your day. It presents in many ways. It's a parasite that's gasping for breath. It's going to do anything. It's a parasite. No blame, no shame. Just biologically, it's time to evolve to a non-parasitic state, because that's more grown up and healthy. Once you figure out what's going on. There, rip the lid off of things a little bit. I like doing that. So I don't know about returning. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. I really feel like now I feel it's such a sense of completion and confidence and sufficiency and quiet and purpose and future that I think that recording will become less and less relevant for processing purposes or for explaining purposes, and more just for reporting. But I do know that I tend to just get a little sick if I'm not creating. So I have to make sure that I'm actively doing something that's creative, or I physically don't do well. It's a sickness for me. So it's something I avoid. I create instead. If it's only just having little quests. All right. I hope you're having a blast. And if you're not, well, I hope you're enjoying the show. Say hello.